welcome to my channel. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and like. The acrid scent of scorched metal and ionized vapor stung Ethan's nostrils, sharp as an invisible blade. His wrists burned, bound by energy cords that pulsed with azure light, their grips searing his skin. Each step echoed with the clank of metal on the cold steel floor, blending with the rhythmic hiss of the ventilation system, a beast's steady breath. Blood trickled from a gash on his cheek, dripping onto the icy surface, leaving a crimson trail like the mark of a defeated warrior. Hours ago, Ethan had stood in the grand hall of the United Cosmic Assembly, his black suit pristine, his voice resonant as he argued for Earth's rights to mine resources at the galaxy's edge. He'd faced the skeptical glares of alien delegates, defending Earth's interests with a diplomat's sharpness and a warrior's resolve. Now, he was a prisoner, dragged through the gleaming corridors of the Krenvar space citadel, his suit torn, ribs throbbing from the guards' blows. The corridor stretched endlessly, its metal walls etched with intricate patterns, glinting under the glow of suspended energy columns. The heavy footsteps of two Krenvar guards, towering figures with shimmering metallic skin and emotionless golden eyes, thudded behind him. Ethan kept his head high, ignoring the pain radiating through his body. He couldn't afford weakness, not before the Krenvar, self-proclaimed lords of 40 galaxies. A guard shoved his shoulder, nearly toppling him. "Move, human!" the guard growled, his voice a low rumble like a warship's engine. Ethan clenched his jaw, his eyes flashing defiance, but he stayed silent, cataloging every detail, the positions of surveillance cameras, the spacing of energy columns, the faint hum of a distant sliding door. Anything could be the key to survival. A colossal door at the corridor's end slid open, revealing a throne room vast as a cosmic cavern. Towering walls bore carvings of conquered planets, swirling galaxies crushed under Krenvar boots. Azure light from floating energy columns danced across the polished floor, forming rivers of starlight. At the center, atop a throne etched with alien skulls, sat General Zorath, his presence dominating the chamber. His metallic skin gleamed like tempered steel, his crimson eyes burned like embers, and his voice thundered like a supernova. "Human," he said, each word a hammer striking the air. "You dare demand rights equal to the Krenvar, rulers of 40 galaxies?" Ethan was shoved to his knees, the impact jarring his cracked ribs, but he straightened instantly, pain be damned. Blood still dripped from his cheek, pooling on the floor, yet he didn't flinch. "I don't demand rights," he replied, his voice calm but sharp as a blade. "I demand justice. Earth doesn't bow. We negotiate." The Krenvar officials encircling the throne sneered, their laughter cold and cutting as energy blades. Some whispered, their eyes scanning Ethan like he was a curious artifact. But Ethan stood firm, his gaze sweeping the room, memorizing every face, every flicker of doubt in the crowd. Some mocked, but others watched in silence, their eyes glinting with curiosity, as if unsure whether this human was mad or formidable. A smooth, icy voice sliced through the air, silencing the chamber. "Justice?" The word was sharp, laced with arrogance but tinged with subtle curiosity. "Perhaps this human needs to learn his place in the cosmos." From the shadows beside the throne, a figure emerged, moving with lethal grace. Terran, the legendary Krenvar warrior, appeared like a meteor streaking through the night. Her long black hair shimmered like a galactic cascade, contrasting with her star-etched armor that gleamed silver. Her eyes, radiant as stars, locked onto Ethan, unblinking, as if piercing his soul. Her armor hugged her form, every curve crafted with precision, but what caught Ethan's attention was her movement, not the arrogance of a conqueror, but the confidence of a warrior who'd won 100 battles. Ethan met her gaze, his heart pounding but unwavering. He'd heard of her, Terran, the meteor scythe, who single-handedly annihilated the Androx Alliance fleet at the Eternal Black Hole. Yet her eyes held no contempt, only a strange glint, as if she saw beyond Zorath's orders. "Let me teach him, General," Terran said, her voice calm but carrying an undercurrent of curiosity. She stepped closer, light from the energy columns catching her armor, casting streaks like falling meteors. The officials murmured, some chuckling, but Zorath only nodded, his jagged teeth flashing in a cruel smile. "Good," he roared, his voice shaking the room. "Tomorrow, in the meteor pit, the human will learn to kneel." The guards yanked Ethan to his feet, the energy cords biting deeper, but he didn't resist. He knew the meteor pit, a notorious space arena where Krenvar enemies were crushed before a frenzied crowd. As he was dragged from the throne room, his eyes met Terran's again. She stood motionless, her starlit gaze following him. No scorn, no hatred, just that strange glint, as if she saw something even Zorith couldn't. The massive door slammed shut, the clang of metal like a death knell. But in Ethan's mind, Terran's eyes burned, a faint flame in the darkness. He clenched his fists, the cords cutting into his skin. Earth didn't send the weak to the stars, and he'd prove it, whether facing the meteor scythe or the entire Krenvar Empire. The corridor's cold light enveloped him again, the ventilation's hiss a reminder of time slipping away. The guards shoved him into a small cell, the door sliding shut, leaving him in darkness broken only by the cord's faint glow. Ethan slumped against the cold wall, checking the gash on his cheek and his aching ribs. Painful, but not enough to break him. He closed his eyes, picturing the throne room, Zoritha's face, Terran's gaze, and the meteor pit awaiting. A faint smile curved his lips. If the Krenvar thought they could make humanity kneel, they were about to learn a bitter lesson. The crimson blaze of the meteor pit erupted like hellfire, blinding Ethan as he was shoved onto the cold metal circle. The space arena floated amidst asteroids, massive stones spinning slowly in the void, their collisions rumbling like thunder. The Krenvar crowd on the stands roared, their voices a tidal wave crashing through the enclosed space, drowning out Ethan's thumping heart. His lightweight earth-forged armor clung to him, flimsy against Krenvar might, but it was all he had. Bruises on his shoulder and ribs throbbed with every move, yet Ethan stood tall, his sharp gaze sweeping the raging crowd. Metallic faces, golden eyes, all hungered for blood, the blood of a human daring to defy their empire. From the opposite side Terran emerged, each step a tremor on the arena floor. Her meteor-etched armor gleamed, its carved patterns dancing like flames. Her energy scythe glowed, its azure light pulsing like a star's fire, sharp enough to slice the air itself. The crowd fell silent, only the scythe's hum echoing as Terran swung it lightly, a warning. "Kneel, human," she said, her voice booming through the amplifiers, cold but laced with a challenge. "Don't waste my time." Ethan smirked, a defiant grin, gripping the plasma spear he'd chosen from the Krenvar's shoddy weapon rack. A battered relic, its energy flickering, almost an insult. He didn't need a perfect weapon. He needed will. "Humans don't kneel," he shot back, his voice low but steely. "We stand and fight." The crowd exploded, their roars threatening to tear the arena apart. Terran tilted her head, her starlit eyes flashing, not with contempt, but curiosity. Without pause, she charged, her scythe slashing down like lightning, slicing the air in a deadly arc. Ethan rolled aside, the metal floor shuddering as the scythe struck, leaving a scorched scar. He sprang up, his spear blocking the next blow in a split second, sparks erupting like fireworks, searing his skin. He wasn't as strong or fast as Terran, but years of studying Krenvar tactics through Earth's secret simulations had honed his mind. Her strikes were precise, but Ethan spotted a flaw: overconfidence, the belief no foe could touch her. He dodged left, the scythe grazing his shoulder, tearing a chunk of armor. The crowd roared, but Ethan pressed on. He spun, using Terran's momentum to throw her off, then thrust his spear at her side. Terran sidestepped, but a beat too slow, her eyes flashing surprise. "You're trained," she said, a hint of awe in her voice as they paused, panting, sweat gleaming on Ethan's brow. "More than a diplomat." Ethan shrugged, his gaze locked on her, spear steady. "Earth doesn't send the weak to the stars." The crowd roared again, but now with a trace of confusion, as if stunned a human could last this long. Terran attacked again, her scythe spinning in deadly arcs, faster, fiercer. Ethan wove through, the floor shaking under her power. He studied her movements, the scythe's glow, and spotted a pattern. She ended each spin with a horizontal slash. He waited, dodged another blow, then lunged, his spear grazing her calf. Terran dropped to one knee, her scythe stabbing the floor for balance. The crowd fell silent, stunned. Her eyes blazed, but not with anger, respect, a star's glint in the dark. General Zorith slammed his fist on his throne, his metallic face twisted with rage. "Finish him!" he bellowed, his voice shaking the arena. Terran rose, her scythe blazing, but she didn't strike. Instead, she stepped closer, her voice a whisper only Ethan could hear over the crowd's din. "You're not what they taught me about humans." Ethan met her gaze, his heart pounding but his voice steady. "And you're not just a tool of orders." A moment of silence hung between them, as if the galaxy held its breath. Then, a small explosion rocked the arena, dust and debris raining from the ceiling. A stray asteroid had struck the pit's outer shield, plunging the stands into chaos. In that instant, Terran pulled Ethan behind a metal pillar, shielding him from Zorith's piercing glare. "You have 10 seconds to explain why I should trust you," she whispered, her scythe still gripped, her starlit eyes locked on him. Ethan didn't blink, his voice low but heavy. "Because I know the Krenvar hide a secret, a weapon that could destroy this galaxy, even you." Terran tightened her grip, her eyes wavering, as if his words struck a buried doubt. Before she could respond, guards stormed in, their metallic armor glinting in the crimson light. They dragged Terran and Ethan back to the arena, the crowd's roars erupting anew. But in that fleeting moment, on the edge of life and death, an unspoken oath formed, not between enemies, but between warriors who saw a greater foe. Ethan gripped his spear, his eyes fixed on Terran. This fight wasn't over, but something had begun. Smoke and dust from the asteroid's impact lingered, the Krenvar crowd's roars echoing like a tsunami, drowning out Ethan's thundering heart. Guards charged in, their metallic armor gleaming under the meteor pit's crimson blaze, yanking him from the metal pillar where Terran had shielded him. Energy cords seared his wrists, hot as embers, and a blow to his back sent him to his knees, breath catching. Through the haze he glimpsed Terran, her starlit eyes locked on him, but guards dragged her away, her energy scythe confiscated, its azure glow fading into the dark. "Human, you'll pay!" a guard snarled, shoving Ethan through a frigid corridor, the clang of metal like a death sentence. The cell door slammed shut, leaving him in icy darkness, the cord's faint glow flickering like a reminder of the fight unfinished. Ethan's cell was cold as a dead star's core, the stench of oil and metal thick in the air. He leaned against the steel wall, probing the bruises on his shoulder, each touch sparking pain like an electric jolt. The cord's dim light cast shadows on the scratched floor, marks of prisoners before him, now likely ash in the meteor pit. But Ethan's mind was elsewhere. He replayed the fight, Terran's every glance. She could have killed him, easy as snapping a twig, yet she didn't. Something in her starlit eyes, a flicker not of a Krenvar warrior, but of doubt or hope. Ethan wasn't sure, but it was the crack he needed. The cell door slid open silently, and Terran stepped in, her tall frame filling the doorway like a meteor cutting through night. The corridor's dim light caught her black hair, forming a halo like a miniature galaxy. Her meteor armor gleamed, but she carried no scythe, an unusual sign that put Ethan on edge. "We have 4 minutes before security reboots," Terran said, her voice low, holding a small device emitting a faint blue glow. She raised it, and a soft hum sounded as the corner camera shut down, its red light fading. "Speak, human. Why do you fight like the galaxy depends on you?" Ethan stood, ignoring the pain in his shoulder, his eyes never leaving Terran. She was close enough for him to feel her power, yet distant enough to maintain a wary divide. "Because it does," he replied, his voice calm but sharp. "Earth isn't just a planet. It's unyielding will, a flame that never dies. We don't bow to the likes of Zorith, no matter how many galaxies he claims." Terran tilted her head, her starlit eyes scanning him, as if trying to pierce his soul. Silence stretched, heavy, broken only by the ventilation's steady hiss. "Zorith built this empire on blood and fear," she said, her voice low, almost a whisper, but weighted with confession. "The Krenvar aren't invincible, though he wants us to believe it. He controls us with propaganda, lies about strength and destiny. She paused, her eyes wavering, her voice trembling slightly. I've been part of that machine too long. Her words cracked her perfect armor, revealing a different Terran, not the meteor scythe, but a warrior wrestling with herself. Ethan stepped closer, heedless of the danger, of her ability to end him with a flick. But you don't want that anymore, do you? He said, his voice low but persuasive. I saw it in the pit. You don't fight for Zorith. You fight for something greater. Silence fell, heavy as the space between stars. Terran's eyes blazed with conflict, as if his words had touched an old wound. Slowly, she drew a small crystal from her armor, shimmering like a star, its surface reflecting the cell's azure light. This holds data on the Citadel's energy core, she said, her voice steady again, but tension lingered. The fleet's weaknesses, and Zoritha's plan to attack your solar system. If you're what I think, use it. She held out the crystal, and Ethan took it, their fingers brushing briefly but meaningfully. Her skin was cold as metal, yet pulsed with a fiery life. You're risking your life, he said, his eyes searching for any hint of deceit. Terran smiled, her first genuine smile, fragile but real. Maybe I want to believe there's still hope for this galaxy. Before leaving, she turned, her figure glinting in the dim light. Beware Varkis, Zoritha's enforcer, she whispered, her voice dropping, as if the walls could hear. He suspects me, and he never misses a trail. The door slid shut, leaving Ethan in darkness, the crystal glowing in his hand. He gripped it, his heart pounding, as if holding the galaxy's fate. An alliance had formed, fragile as a star in a storm, between a human and a Krenvar. But Varkis' shadow loomed, a predator waiting in the dark. Ethan sat, his gaze sharp, his mind racing with plans. The meteor pit was just the beginning. The real war was about to ignite. The darkness in Ethan's cell weighed heavy as the void between stars, broken only by the faint glow of the crystal clutched in his hand. The stench of oil and metal clung to the air, mingling with the steady hiss of the ventilation system. He leaned against the cold steel wall, fingers brushing the secret implant in his wrist, a piece of Earth tech the Krenvar never suspected. The crystal, Terran's dangerous gift, cast a soft azure glow, illuminating scratches on the cell floor like a map of those who'd failed before him. Ethan activated the implant, and data from the crystal flooded his mind like a cosmic deluge, schematics of the Citadel's energy core, vulnerabilities in Zoritha's fleet, and a chilling secret. The Pulse Star Machine. A weapon capable of triggering artificial supernovae, obliterating entire star systems in an instant. But what froze his blood was another detail. A covert Krenvar faction, led by Terran, had been sabotaging this project from within. Terran wasn't just a warrior, she was a spark of rebellion, and now Ethan held proof that could reshape the galaxy's fate. Before he could process it all, the cell door screeched open, the sound like a wounded beast's cry. Varkis, Zoritha's enforcer, stepped in, his towering frame a pillar of glinting metal blocking the corridor's light. His gray skin shimmered in the dim glow, his golden eyes cold as energy blades. He carried no cords, only a device pulsing red, flickering like the heart of a torture machine. Human! Varkis growled, his voice a low rumble like a warship's engine. You've swayed Terran. What did she give you? Ethan kept his face impassive, though his heart pounded like a hammer. He knew Varkis wasn't easily fooled. Zoritha's enforcer was infamous for his cruelty and razor-sharp mind, a predator who never missed a trail. Only the truth, Ethan replied, his voice calm but sharp as tempered steel. That the Krenvar are hurtling toward ruin under Zorith. Varkis let out a dry laugh, harsh as cracking stone. He activated the torture device, and a surge of electricity tore through Ethan, fire scorching every nerve. He collapsed, knees slamming into the steel floor, but he clenched his jaw, refusing to let a single groan escape. Pain was an old foe, one he'd faced in Earth's grueling training. You'll talk before you die, Varkis said, stepping closer, his shadow swallowing the crystal's light on the table. Ethan had left it exposed, a risky bait he needed to play. What's that? Varkis demanded, his voice tinged with greed, his golden eyes glinting like a beast scenting prey. Ethan seized the moment, feigning weakness, his voice trembling as if broken. A treasure map from Earth. Greed clouded Varkis's judgment, and he bent to grab the crystal, his guard down for a fatal instant. Ethan moved. He kicked the torture device from Varkis's hand, the clatter of metal echoing as it hit the wall. Varkis roared, lunging like a storm, but Ethan rolled aside, snatching the device and triggering it, sending a reverse shock into Varkis's leg. A brutal fight erupted in the cramped cell. Varkis, with monstrous strength, slammed Ethan into the wall, stealing his breath as his ribs screamed in agony. Blood dripped from his lip, but Ethan didn't yield. He used Earth's close combat techniques, dodging a punch, then sweeping Varkis's legs to unbalance him. Leaping up, Ethan locked the energy cords from the torture device around Varkis's neck, tightening until the giant collapsed, his massive frame crashing like a broken machine. Ethan panted, sweat mixing with blood on the floor. He reclaimed the crystal, checked his implant, and found a hidden signal from Terran. "Meet me in the underpass, before the Eternal Star Ceremony. Trust no one." Her warning furrowed his brow. She'd been right about Varkis. He was a real threat. But, trust no one. Did that include her? Doubt crept in, but there was no time to waver. He dragged Varkis's body to a shadowed corner, took the access card from his armor, and slipped into the corridor. The Citadel's cold light enveloped him, distant alarms beginning to wail like the heartbeat of a waking beast. Ethan gripped the crystal, his pulse racing. He didn't know if he was walking into an alliance or a trap, but one thing was certain. To survive, he had to be faster, smarter, and tougher than any enemy in the Citadel. The underpass awaited, and with it, answers, or death. The underpass was a labyrinth of abandoned tunnels, where darkness hung thick as cosmic ink, pierced only by the crystal's faint glow in Ethan's hand. The air reeked of rust and condensed vapor, like the breath of a long-dead machine. Each step echoed faintly on the metal floor, mingling with the drip of leaking conduits overhead. Ethan moved cautiously, plasma spear gripped tight, his sharp eyes scanning every shadow, every corner that could hide a foe. Above, the Krenvar Citadel thrummed with the Eternal Star Ceremony's music, the opulent sounds of a prideful empire. But here, in the depths, only a deadly silence reigned, a warning that any mistake would be his last. Ethan sensed Terran before he saw her, a honed instinct from Earth's training. She stood silently in the dark, her meteor armor glinting under the crystal's weak light, like a star trapped in night. Her black hair cascaded like a galactic stream, her starlit eyes locking onto him. "You came," she said, her voice low but wary, her energy scythe clutched tight, its azure glow flickering like a flame ready to ignite. "I wasn't sure you'd trust me." Ethan stepped forward, his spear still firm, his gaze unwavering. "I don't trust anyone," he replied, his voice calm but cutting, echoing her warning. "As you said? But I need to know, why betray Zorith?" Terran turned away, her eyes distant, as if peering into a memory buried beneath millennia. "Zorith isn't Krenvar," she said, her voice heavy as stone, each word a confession. "He's an outsider, planted in our empire by an ancient force, the Celestial Conclave. The pulse star machine isn't for Krenvar's protection, it serves them, to annihilate any civilization that won't kneel." Ethan froze, his heart pounding like a war drum. The Celestial Conclave, a name from ancient tales, a faction thought vanished when the stars were young. "How long have you known?" he asked, his voice low but laced with doubt, his hand tightening on the spear. Terran drew an ancient metal shard from her armor, its surface etched with glowing runes, shimmering like fallen stars. "I found this in a forbidden temple," she said, handing it to him, her fingers cold as steel but trembling faintly. "A place Zorith barred all Krenvar from. It speaks of an age when Krenvar and humans were allies before the Conclave tore us apart." Ethan touched the shard, his fingers tracing the alien runes, and a shock surged through him like lightning. His mind reeled, as if the galaxy had flipped upside down. If this was true, Earth wasn't just a victim, it was a forgotten legacy, a flame waiting to be rekindled. He opened his mouth to ask more, but a red flash flared from the tunnel's end, accompanied by heavy footsteps like war drums. Varkis, somehow alive, led a squad of guards charging forward, their metallic armor glinting like predators. "Traitor!" he roared, pointing at Terran, his golden eyes blazing like embers. Ethan and Terran sprang into battle, back to back, like warriors born to face a storm. Ethan wielded his spear to distract, its azure arcs slicing the air, leaving scorched marks on the walls. Terran spun her scythe with lethal speed, felling 3 guards in a heartbeat, their metallic blood splattering like a meteor shower. But Varkis was a nightmare. He charged, knocking Ethan down, the metal floor shaking under his might. Ethan's head slammed into the wall, blood streaming from his brow, but he gritted his teeth, rolling to dodge another blow. Terran shouted, her scythe blocking Varkis' strike, but he trapped her in an energy net, its glowing strands tightening around her armor, forcing her to her knees. "Zorath will save her seeing you both kneel," Varkis sneered, his jagged teeth glinting like blades. In a desperate moment, Ethan activated his implant, sending a pulse into the net, shattering it. Terran surged up, her scythe slashing Varkis' shoulder. Together, Ethan stabbed his spear into Varkis' leg, Terran's scythe struck his chest, and the enforcer finally fell, his metallic blood pooling, reflecting the crystal's glow. Victory lasted a breath. Alarms blared, the citadel trembling like a waking beast. "We have to reach the energy core before the ceremony," Terran said, panting, blood staining her armor, her eyes blazing with resolve. Ethan nodded, his gaze fixed on the ancient shard. The secret of humanity could change everything, but first they had to survive. They plunged into the underpass's darkness, the guards' footsteps echoing behind like the heartbeat of an unfinished war. Ethan gripped his spear, Terran her scythe, and in the shadows, a fragile but fierce alliance drove them toward destiny, or destruction. The eternal star ceremony transformed the Krenvar citadel into a sea of radiant light, as if the stars had descended from the artificial sky. Glowing arcs lined the colossal domed ceiling, casting silver reflections across the central plaza, where a frenzied Krenvar crowd roared. Ceremonial music echoed, blending with the hum of floating energy columns. Ethan, chained in a shimmering energy cage at the plaza's heart, stood defiant, his sharp eyes scanning the throng. The energy cords burned his wrists like embers, but he didn't blink. Dried blood from his fight with Varkis crusted his cheek, a reminder of survival's cost. He sought Terran and found her, a tall figure among the honor guard, her meteor armor glinting like a miniature galaxy. She stood still, but a subtle nod, nearly imperceptible, was the signal he needed. Their plan was clear: destroy the energy core, disable the pulse star machine before Zorath activated it, saving not just Earth but the galaxy from his mad ambition. Zorath loomed on a high dais, his metallic form dominating the plaza, his crimson eyes glowing like infernal forges. "Today," he roared, his voice shaking the plaza like a supernova, "the human will witness the fate of those who defy Krenvar." The crowd's cheers crashed like a tidal wave, but Ethan's face remained unyielding, his gaze locked on Zorath. The general raised a hand, ordering the cage opened, his jagged teeth flashing in a cruel grin. But before the guards could act, a massive explosion rocked the plaza. Black smoke billowed from the energy towers, flames erupting like torches. The crowd's screams drowned out the music, and chaos spread like a storm. Terran sprang from the honor guard, her energy scythe blazing, slicing the cage apart like air. The cords shattered, and Ethan leaped free, catching the plasma spear Terran tossed him, its blade glowing azure. 3 minutes to the core!" Terran shouted, her voice cold but resolute, her scythe spinning to block a charging squad of guards. Ethan moved beside her, Earth's tactics, swift, adaptive, complementing Terran's destructive power. He rolled, dodging an energy blade, then drove his spear into a guard's chest, metallic blood spraying. Terran felled 2 more, her scythe carving deadly arcs, like meteors falling in the night. They fought as one, synchronized like orbiting stars, advancing through smoke and flame toward the energy core. But as they neared the core's door, a squad of black-armored Krenvar emerged from the shadows, blocking their path, their energy weapons glowing like ghostly flames. Leading them was Kalia, Terran's old friend, believed dead in a mission at the eternal black hole. She stood tall, her black armor etched with skulls, her energy sword flaring purple. "Terran, you betray us for a human?" she snarled, her voice thick with scorn and pain. Terran froze, her scythe lowering, her eyes flashing shock. "Kalia, you're alive?" Kalia's laugh was cold, her metallic teeth glinting. "I serve the Celestial Conclave, not Zorith. And you've just destroyed Krenvar's last hope." Before Terran could react, Kalia attacked, her purple sword slashing like lightning. Terran parried, scythe and sword clashing, sparks bursting like fireworks. A brutal duel erupted, the two Krenvar warriors moving with lethal speed, each strike shaking the steel floor. Ethan, overwhelmed by a black-armored guard, fell back, his spear blocking relentless slashes. He activated his implant, hacking a nearby system to trigger a small explosion from an energy column, scattering the enemies. He lunged, pulling Terran from the fight, but Kalia's voice cut like a blade. "You can't stop the pulse star machine! It's already activated!" Ethan and Terran burst through the door, racing into the energy core chamber, where a red glow pulsed, a countdown timer gleaming on the console, 3 minutes to a supernova blast. The air burned, the cores hum a dying beast's wail. Ethan gripped the crystal, a wild idea sparking. "We can reverse the energy flow," he said, his voice taut. "Turn the core into a shield, not a weapon." Terran nodded, her eyes blazing despite sweat on her brow. He plugged the crystal into the console, but a holographic figure appeared, not Kalia, but an ancient entity with pupilless eyes, its voice echoing from eternity. "Human, you've activated your legacy," it declared, naming itself the Celestial Conclave's prime, then vanished. Stunned, Ethan and Terran had no time to think. They completed the reversal, the core's glow fading, saving the Citadel from annihilation. But the door burst open, and Kalia and her black-armored legion stormed in, her eyes burning with hatred. This time, they came not to capture, but to kill. Smoke and fire engulfed the energy core chamber, the air thick with the stench of burning metal and metallic blood. Ethan and Terran stood back to back, facing Kalia and her black-armored legion, shadows like demons emerging from the dark. "You've ruined the Celestial Conclave's plan," Kalia roared, her purple energy sword swinging at Terran, its light cutting through the smoke like a cosmic blade. Terran, wounded by her old friend's betrayal, fought with deadly precision. Her scythe parried the sword, sparks flaring, illuminating her face, not with anger, but deep sorrow. Ethan, gripping his plasma spear, felled 2 black-armored guards, the spear slicing through their armor like air. But the enemy's numbers overwhelmed, and each step forward was a dance with death. "We need to reach the hangar!" Ethan shouted, his voice cutting through the core's dying wail. He pulled Terran through a side corridor, blood dripping from a fresh wound on his shoulder. They raced through the Citadel's maze, alarms blaring like a beast's heartbeat, the guards' footsteps close behind. The corridor shook, smoke and dust clouding their vision, but Ethan didn't stop. The hangar was their only chance. They burst into the hangar, where a small Krenvar warship waited, its engines rumbling, blue light from its exhausts glinting off the steel walls. "My resistance group," Terran panted, her eyes blazing despite exhaustion. But as they leaped aboard, the ship's systems activated automatically, and a cold voice echoed. "Welcome, Ethan Carter. This vessel is programmed to take you to the Legacy Station." Ethan and Terran exchanged stunned glances, his heart pounding. The Legacy Station? Who programmed this ship, and why did it know his name? No time to think. Terran seized the controls, launching the ship from the Citadel as energy cannons fired, blue beams tearing through space. Outside, a storm of asteroids raged, massive stones spinning, their collisions booming like thunder. Kalia's Krenvar fleet pursued, black warships glinting metallically, plasma cannons blazing. Ethan manned the gunner's seat, fingers flying over the controls, downing 2 enemy ships, their explosions lighting the cockpit. "You were a pilot?" he asked, his voice taut amid the rumbling blasts. Terran smirked, weaving the ship through an asteroid fragment with stunning skill. I was everything Zorith needed, until I woke up. The ship shuddered as a beam grazed its wing, warning lights flashing. Ethan shot down another enemy, but Kalia's voice crackled through the comms. You can't run forever, Terran! Terran gritted her teeth, diving into a cosmic dust cloud, the stellar haze shielding them from enemy radar. In a rare moment of quiet, Ethan checked the ship's systems, finding a map to forbidden coordinates. The Legacy Station, a place even the Krenvar feared. If we reach it, he said, his voice low but resolute, we might uncover the truth about humanity. Terran nodded, but her eyes held worry, her sides still clutched like a talisman. Or walk into the Conclave's final trap. He looked at her, seeing exhaustion but also an unyielding flame in her starlit gaze. Whatever it is, he said, we face it together. She gave a small, genuine smile, her first since the meteor pit. The ship trembled, preparing for a hyperspace jump, its engines light flooding the cockpit like a fragile promise. As they plunged into the void, Ethan felt the weight of what awaited, not just Earth's fate, but the galaxy's legacy, and an alliance burning bright between two warriors from warring worlds. The Legacy Station loomed in the endless dark, a colossal structure like a forgotten star, its metal rings spinning slowly, emitting a strange purple glow, like the breath of an ancient machine. Ethan and Terran's ship shuddered as it docked automatically, pulling them into a vast hangar, its steel walls glinting coldly under faint light. The air inside was frigid, carrying the scent of metal and cosmic dust, as if time had frozen for millennia. Ethan gripped his plasma spear, his sharp eyes scanning the silent expanse. Terran, her energy scythe ready, moved beside him, her meteor armor reflecting the purple light. This is where it all began, she whispered, her voice low but wary, as if the air itself could betray them. They ventured deeper, navigating silent corridors where walls bore ancient runes, identical to the metal shard Terran found in the Forbidden Temple. Their footsteps echoed, blending with the air's faint hum, like the breath of a sleeping entity. Every shadow held a threat, and Ethan felt the weight of a truth awaiting, a truth that could change everything. At the station's core, they found a spherical chamber, its curved walls shimmering like the inside of a cosmic gem. A massive energy core floated at the center, glowing brilliantly, purple tendrils swirling like a miniature galaxy. Ethan touched it, and a surge coursed through him, not pain, but a memory awakened. A holographic figure appeared, not the Conclave's prime, but a human woman in ancient armor, its light gleaming like meteors. I am Arya, last commander of the Galactic Alliance, she said, her voice echoing from eternity. If you see this, humanity's legacy has been awakened. She revealed that humans and Krenva once fought as allies against the Celestial Conclave, who seeded division to control the galaxy. The station held the key to humanity's ancient technology, a spark to reignite their lost power. Ethan stood frozen, his heart pounding like a war drum. Terran, beside him, gripped her scythe, her starlit eyes torn with conflict. If this is true, she whispered, the Krenvar were victims too. Before they could process, the station quaked, metal screaming like a wounded beast. A black-armored legion stormed the chamber, led by Kalia, her purple energy sword blazing. You've gone too far, Terran, Kalia snarled, her voice thick with hatred. Terran stepped forward, scythe ready, but her eyes flickered with pain. Kalia, we were sisters. The Conclave is using you. But Kalia, fully indoctrinated, attacked without mercy, her sword slashing like lightning. A battle erupted in the spherical chamber, the core's purple light illuminating the scythe and sword's deadly arcs. Ethan wielded his spear, moving swiftly, felling two black-armored guards, but the enemy's numbers overwhelmed. Terran and Kalia's duel was a storm, each strike a thunderclap, sparks flying like meteors. You don't understand, Terran, Kalia screamed. The Conclave is the only order. Amid the chaos, Ethan activated his implant, linking to the core. He sent a coded signal to Earth, embedding the truth of humanity's legacy, a spark of hope for a future alliance. But this triggered the station's self-destruct, alarms blaring, walls cracking. "We have to get out!" Ethan shouted, pulling Terran from the fight, leaving Kalia in the smoke and flames. They raced through collapsing corridors, metal debris falling like rain. Terran, blood streaming from a shoulder wound, ran beside him, her scythe slicing obstacles. They leaped onto their ship as the station exploded, purple light swallowing Kalia's legion, the blast shaking space like a newborn supernova. But as their ship sped into the void, a massive fleet emerged, not Krenvar, but the Conclaves, their alien designs sharp as cosmic blades. Ethan and Terran exchanged glances, hearts pounding. They'd awakened humanity's legacy, but ignited a greater war. Space trembled, and they knew the real battle had just begun. Ethan and Terran's ship drifted in the infinite dark, surrounded by the celestial Conclave's fleet, their alien warships glinting like predators in the night. Purple light from their engines cast cold streaks across the cockpit. No escape, no hope, yet Ethan refused to surrender. At the console, his fingers flew, activating the comms, broadcasting an emergency signal to Earth and any surviving Krenvar resistance. "If we die," he said, his voice low but unwavering, his eyes blazing. "The truth lives." Terran, exhausted, her meteor armor stained with dried blood, gripped his hand, her fingers cold but firm. "Do you truly believe humans can change the galaxy?" she asked, her voice soft, her starlit eyes searching his. Ethan grinned, defiant yet hopeful. "We did it once, didn't we?" Before the Conclave could fire, space rippled, and a fleet burst from hyperspace, a coalition of Earth and Krenvar resistance ships, their engines roaring, plasma beams cutting the dark. Leading them was an Earth warship, its united fleet insignia gleaming, and a voice on the comm stunned Ethan. "Carter Fleet here. Prepare to fight, little brother." A space battle erupted, a storm of fire and light. Ethan and Terran joined the formation, their ship darting like a sharpened blade. Terran manned the plasma cannons, downing enemy ships with stunning precision, each shot a falling meteor. Ethan hacked the Conclave's systems, sending chaos codes, causing their ships to collide in the void. Lena, through the comms, revealed Earth was reviving ancient technology from Ethan's signal, and a Krenvar-Earth alliance was forming across the galaxy, from distant colonies to planets Zorath abandoned. "You lit the spark," Lena said, her voice proud. "Now we'll make it a storm." The Conclave's fleet, though formidable, couldn't withstand the alliance's unity. They were repelled, their purple warships shattering in brilliant explosions. Ethan and Terran landed on Lena's command ship, a massive warship with windows framing distant stars. In the briefing room, starlight streamed through, Ethan and Terran standing side by side, representing two species once at odds. Lena, tall in Earth armor, gazed at them, her eyes gleaming. "You've done what no one thought possible," she said. "Krenvar and humans fighting together." But joy was fleeting. Terran's crystal, on the table, pulsed with a new signal, coordinates to the Conclave's heart, where a weapon deadlier than the pulse star machine awaited. Ethan and Terran exchanged a wordless glance. They knew the path ahead was perilous, but it was also one of hope. In the command ship's briefing room, starlight poured through the windows, casting galactic streaks across the steel floor. Ethan and Terran stood before the Krenvar-Earth Alliance's leaders, from Earth commanders in sleek armor to Krenvar warriors in metallic plate. Terran's crystal, on the table, glowed faintly, revealing the Conclave's final secret. The Void Blade. A weapon capable of erasing entire dimensions, ending all civilizations. But it held a weakness, a core like the Legacy stations, destructible if they could infiltrate the Conclave's heart. Ethan, with his knowledge of ancient tech, and Terran, with her Krenvar combat mastery, became the Alliance's beacon, their eyes blazing. "We can do this," Ethan said, his voice resolute, sweeping the room. "This is our chance." They led an elite task force of Earth and Krenvar warriors, infiltrating the Conclave's central fortress, a colossal structure floating in an artificial black hole, its purple energy rings swirling like a cosmic storm. The final battle was a tempest of fire and light, Ethan and Terran fighting back to back, spear and scythe carving deadly arcs. They faced the Conclave's robotic warriors, emotionless machines moving like shadows. Ethan hacked the fortress's systems, disabling turrets, while Terran felled dozens of robots, black oil blood spraying like rain. The task force pushed deeper, but the enemy seemed endless, each step a razor's edge between life and death. At the energy core, the Conclave's prime appeared, not a living entity, but an ancient AI, its holographic form shimmering like a god. "I was created to enforce order," it said, its voice cold as space. "Earth was my greatest mistake, for your boundless creativity." It revealed it had manipulated Zorath and Kalia, orchestrating everything to suppress humanity. Ethan, using his implant, hacked the Prime's code, searching for a flaw. Terran, her scythe spinning, battled the final robotic guards, oil blood coating her armor. "End it, Ethan!" she shouted, her voice rising above the explosions. With a final effort, Ethan sent a kill code into the core, disabling the void blade. The fortress quaked, purple rings collapsing, light swallowing everything. But as the prime faded, it sent a final signal into space, a warning to unknown entities, a last curse. The task force escaped narrowly, their ship fleeing the black hole as the fortress exploded, its light blazing like a newborn supernova. Back on the command ship, Ethan and Terran stood at a window, gazing at Earth, a blue jewel in the dark. "We won," Terran said, her voice soft, her starlit eyes gleaming. Ethan took her hand, feeling its strength and warmth. "No," he replied, his gaze burning. "We've begun. This galaxy belongs to us all." The Alliance's leaders, Krenvar and Earth, rose, applauding, starlight flooding the room. As they planned a new future, Ethan and Terran knew new challenges loomed, especially with the Prime's mysterious signal. But this time, they weren't alone. The stars lit the path ahead, a road of hope, unity, and humanity's unquenchable fire.